The story begins with an author named Osamu Dezai walking toward a river with a woman by his side. Upon reaching the river, Osamu deems it the perfect spot for their planned double suicide, and the woman agrees. They tie themselves together with a red string, believing this will ensure they remain together even in the afterlife. Just as they are about to jump into the river, a truck suddenly appears and hits them, teleporting Osamu to another world. Upon regaining his bearings, Osamu wonders if he has reached the afterlife, noting the Western-style surroundings. An elven priestess named Annette approaches him and explains that this is not the afterlife. She introduces herself as a guide for those who descend upon this world and tells him that he has been transported to a different world called Zauberberg, where he has been chosen to become a hero destined to bring light to this realm. Osamu is stunned by this turn of events, lamenting that he failed in his double suicide and ended up in a strange place instead. Annette observes that he seems to understand his situation, but he confesses that his life has been full of shame. As Annette tries to explain his mission, she notices that Osamu has poisoned himself and is near death. Quickly, she uses her skill called Purifying Light to detoxify him. Osamu, however, tells her she didn't need to save him and asks her to leave him alone. Annette insists that he is meant to be a hero and fulfill a great mission. Osamu dismisses her concerns, stating that he doesn't care about any mission and continues to casually consume poisonous pills, expressing his desire to find a place to die. Annette, bewildered, asks why he would want to die after being chosen by this world. Osamu retorts that he never asked to be chosen. Annette inquires if he encountered a truck, which Osamu confirms. Relieved, Annette explains that the truck he encountered was the Otherworld selection truck, responsible for bringing him to this world. She elaborates that the truck selects people leading unhappy lives in their old world and transports them to another world, offering them a fresh start. If the truck came for him, it indicates he was unhappy in his previous life. She congratulates him on being given this chance. This angers Osamu, who explains that the truck interrupted his double suicide, which he considered the happiest moment of his life. Annette is taken aback, and Osamu asserts that she has no right to decide what constitutes happiness for someone else. Annette, puzzled by his reaction, thinks that once Osamu sees his stats, he might change his mind. Annette explains that every human brought to this world is granted superhuman abilities. However, she soon notices that Osamu is exceptionally weak. His level is 1. He has only a single health point and no magic at all. His stats screen is colored red, indicating he is on the verge of death. She realizes he is still poisoned despite her detoxification efforts and suspects a system error, as no one should be this weak. She searches for any special skills he might possess, but finds nothing. This is the first time she has encountered such a weak otherworlder. Osamu then tries to leave the church, but Annette stops him, stating that he might have been brought to this world by mistake. She tells him that he doesn't have the ability to survive here, and Osamu, agreeing, mentions that he is branded a failure no matter which world he is in. Annette apologizes for the mistake and asks him to stay at the church for a while, as he is too weak to survive on his own. She warns that he will be killed the moment he steps outside, but Osamu tells her not to worry about him, as he is just looking for a suitable place to die. As he tries to leave, Annette reflects on how different he is from other heroes she has guided. She recalls her initial pride in guiding otherworlders, but over time, she became disillusioned, merely flattering arrogant and pretentious heroes. Osamu, however, is different. She tries to stop him again, suggesting that he at least choose a profession before leaving. Osamu insists he doesn't need to as he is a born author. He then leaves the church, and Annette feels that he is the man she has been waiting for her whole life. The scene shifts to Osamu standing at a checkpoint, unable to read a single word written there. He realizes he won't find a cafe around here. Suddenly, he hears a voice in his head informing him that he has discovered a landmark called the Great Plains of Estern, gaining 5 experience points. Osamu, suffering from migraines, asks the voice to stop speaking directly in his mind. The voice, however, announces that he has risen to level 2. Osamu, feeling overwhelmed, hears a girl screaming in the distance. He goes to investigate and finds a cat girl trapped by a monster called a death tree. The girl pleads for help, explaining she will be killed if he doesn't act. Osamu, noticing her oddly shaped ears, muses about the allure of dying women. The girl, desperate, asks if he has any weapons or spells, but Osamu is soon captured by the death tree as well. Hanging from the tree, the girl calls him useless. Osamu smiles, saying they don't have much longer to live, and the girl blames him for their predicament. She explains that death trees have a suction skill that steals life force, and they will both die in a few minutes. Osamu, excited by the prospect, asks if she feels the same. The girl, perplexed by his demeanor, tells him to not give up as he begins to feel weak. As the tree sucks the last of his life force, Osamu rides in pleasure, but he soon stops responding. The girl, fearing the worst, accepts this place as her grave. Suddenly, the death tree begins to rot, starting from the branch holding Osamu. In moments, the entire tree rots and breaks, releasing both of them. The girl, confused, realizes Osamu's poison must have killed the tree. The voice in Osamu's head announces that his poison dealt 300 points of damage to the death tree, raising him to level 3. The girl, impressed, asks if he poisoned himself on purpose, suspecting he pretended to be weak. Osamu lights a cigarette, explaining that every time he tries to die, something like this happens. He reveals that he has attempted suicide 5 times, but it has never gone as planned. The girl, not understanding his depression, is nonetheless grateful she survived and thanks him. She invites him to her place to properly thank him, asking his name while holding his hand. Osamu notices the red string on his hand and thinks about Sachin, the girl he tried to commit double suicide with. Ignoring the cat girl, he resolves to find Sachin, believing she must be in this world too since they were hit by the truck together. He declares that his new purpose is to find Sachin and attempt double suicide again. Meanwhile, back at the church, Annette prays to the gods, asking them to protect Osamu and let her meet him again someday. Osamu enters the church with Annette feeling relieved to see him again. But her curiosity is piqued by the presence of another girl with him. Osamu promptly explains that he has a question for her. He is searching for a woman named Sachin and asks if Annette knows where he might find her. Annette is taken aback by the fact that Osamu is now looking for yet another woman. The scene then transitions to Osamu and the cat girl standing in the plains outside the church. Osamu admits to himself that he has no idea where to find Sachin. The cat girl, trying to cheer him up, assures him that he will eventually find her. She suggests that since they have a long journey ahead, they should stop by the castle town of Wrath on their way to her place. As she attempts to lead Osamu by the hand, Annette intervenes, stopping her from holding his hand in public. The cat girl questions why Annette decided to join them in the first place. Embarrassed, Annette quietly gazes at Osamu, and the cat girl quickly deduces that Annette is in love with him. Annette, flustered, insists that her motives are not impure, and that she simply has a responsibility to protect this weak otherworlder. Surprised, the cat girl remarks that Osamu is an otherworlder, which, she believes, explains his strength. Annette is confused by this, as she knows Osamu is supposed to be weak, which is why she feels obligated to stay with him. The cat girl clarifies that Osamu killed a death tree with a single attack and saved her life. Annette feels devastated upon learning that Osamu and the cat girl have already formed such a close bond that he saved her life. She grows angry at the cat girl. At that moment, they both notice Osamu lying in a coffin. He tells them that he plans to sleep in it for a while and asks them to wake him up when they arrive at the city. He wishes Annette and Tama a good night. The cat girl tries to correct him, saying her name is not Tama. but Osamu is already asleep. Annette, feeling smug, takes satisfaction in the fact that Osamu only addressed her by the correct name. She then drags the sleeping Osamu towards the city, leading the cat girl to question whether Annette is truly a clergywoman. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a princess sits with a forlorn expression on her face. Afterwards, we see Tama and Annette struggling to pull a heavy coffin containing Osamu. Tama, frustrated with the weight, shouts at Osamu to come out and walk on his own. Receiving no response, she wonders if he is dead. Annette checks his stats and finds that his single hit point HP is still intact, reassuring Tama that he is merely resting. Tama tells Annette to watch her phrasing and scolds her for calling her by her name. Inside the coffin, Osamu thinks about Sachin and wishes to find her to commit double suicide together. The scene shifts to them arriving in town, where they wake up Osamu. As he sees the otherworldly town, he thinks it isn't so bad. Annette suggests they go to the castle to have an audience with the king. They head to the castle, leaving the coffin behind, which causes curiosity among the townspeople. Later, they meet the King of Wrath, who introduces himself as Thomas, and his daughter Charlotte. The king invites them to rest in the castle's bedchamber for the night. Tama and Annette praise the king for his kindness, but he mentions he has a condition for their stay. The king explains that he loves hearing stories from travelers and asks them to share pleasant memories from their journeys. Osamu, with a menacing look, asks if the king would like to know how it feels to sleep in a coffin. The king, frightened, wonders if he is being threatened. Annette quickly changes the subject by complimenting the princess's beauty, and the king reveals she is getting married soon. The king then asks for their advice on whom his daughter should marry. Two men are brought into the throne room: Gomez, a valiant knight, and Otto, a minstrel known as the Voice of Love. The king explains that due to increased monster activity influenced by the wrathful Dark Lord, he is too old to deal with the threat himself. Therefore, he has decided that one of these two men will marry his daughter and become the next king. However, Charlotte has yet to choose between them. The king asks for their advice on this critical choice. Osamu bluntly states that he has no idea and criticizes the king for asking travelers to decide such an important matter. He calls the king a tyrant for ruling his daughter's life and declares that he is not even fit to be a king. Osamu then tries to leave, stating that he has no right to speak since he feels unworthy of living in any world. Annette and Tama apologize on his behalf, explaining that Osamu is an otherworlder and doesn't understand how this world works. The king, surprisingly understanding, forgives Osamu after learning of his otherworldly origins. Later that night, Osamu struggles to sleep in their room. Annette wakes up and asks if something is troubling him. Osamu reveals that he never sleeps well. Annette hesitantly asks about Sachin, but Osamu remains silent. She then notices a tail sticking out from his sheets and finds Tama sleeping on his thighs. Annette wakes the shameless cat with a punch to the gut, questioning how she can casually sleep on a man's thighs. Tama angrily explains that she was just feeling cold and followed the natural instincts of her species, leading to more bickering between the two. Osamu leaves the room to escape the incessant bickering between Tama and Annette, wandering around the castle until he encounters the princess gazing solemnly at the beautiful lake scenery. He strikes up a conversation, remarking on the lovely view. She agrees, and he darkly muses that the tranquil lake makes him want to drown himself. The princess, bewildered, asks if he is truly so troubled that he wishes to end his life. Osamu replies that she appears more troubled than he is and inquires about her worries. She confides in him about her dilemma in choosing between Gomez and Otto. She explains that Gomez, though a recent addition to their castle, has quickly become their most dependable soldier, earning her father's trust and being a sensible choice for the future of the kingdom. However, Otto, her childhood friend, has always been there for her, singing songs to lift her spirits. Unsure whom to choose, she feels torn between duty and affection. Osamu empathizes, sharing that his life has been a continuous series of troubles, marked by multiple suicide attempts and great inconvenience to his family. However, he emphasizes that he never asked anyone else to decide his fate. He advises the princess to listen to her own desires and make a choice based on her heart, then leaves her to ponder his words. The next day, Osamu and his companions are summoned for another audience with the king. The king announces that Charlotte has finally made her decision regarding her marriage. He asks them to witness her choice. Annette thinks Gomez would be best for the kingdom's future, while Tama prefers Otto, believing he is a better match for the princess. Before they can start arguing, the king instructs Charlotte to stand before her chosen suitor. To everyone's shock, she takes Osamu's hand and declares that she will commit double suicide with him. Annette faints from the shock of Osamu having another woman in his life. Charlotte explains that after talking with Osamu, she realized that Otto only sought her company to perform his new songs, even when she was happy. This revelation makes it clear that he was using her for his own satisfaction. Additionally, she finds Gomez unappealing due to his odor. The king urges his daughter to choose a husband, but Charlotte angrily retorts that he never considered her feelings and reveals that she doesn't want to get married at all. She appreciates Osamu for being the only one to respect her opinion. Understanding her reasoning, Osamu agrees to the double suicide plan. However, before they can proceed, Gomez removes his helmet and transforms into a minotaur. He confesses that he planned to take over the kingdom and offer it to the Dark Lord, but didn't expect the princess to see through his disguise. Confused, Osamu asks if Charlotte knew his true identity, but she had no idea and simply thought he smelled bad. Flustered, the Minotaur declares that he will kill them all. Tama tries to wake Annette, knowing she can't fight the beast alone. Soldiers attempt to subdue the Minotaur, but are easily defeated. Rubble from the battle almost hits Annette, but Tama saves her. Tama then confronts the Minotaur, ready to fight. Otto, the minstrel, tries to assist, revealing his surprisingly high level of 89. He sings a song, but it has no effect. The Minotaur attacks Tama, but she deflects him, though her attacks seem ineffective against his sturdy horns. The Minotaur, excited by the challenge, prepares to attack Tama with full force, but Osamu intervenes, asking if they can be killed first. He explains the princess's wish to commit double suicide and requests that the Minotaur use his magnificent horns to fulfill their desire. Tama and the king protest, but Osamu remains resolute. The Minotaur agrees, planning to kill the king and destroy the city afterward. As the Minotaur prepares to kill them, Osamu reassures the trembling princess that their wish is about to be granted. The Minotaur charges at Osamu and the princess, with Tama and the king desperately trying to save them, but unable to reach them in time. At the critical moment, the princess gets cold feet and declares that she can't die yet. She wants to live and protect the people of her kingdom. Osamu, anticipating her change of heart, tells her that she is a kind princess and pushes her out of the Minotaur's path, saying she is not fit to be his partner in a double suicide. Before the Minotaur can strike Osamu, Annette erects a powerful barrier, declaring she won't let Osamu die like this. The barrier is so strong that it breaks the Minotaur's horns. Seizing the opportunity, Tama delivers a powerful attack that sends the Minotaur flying out of the castle and into the lake. Exhausted from the fight, the two girls relax. Tama thanks Annette for her help, and Annette reciprocates. The song-loving minstrel attempts to write a song about their budding friendship, but they quickly stop him, having had enough of his songs. The king then apologizes to his daughter for not considering her feelings and admits he is unfit to be a king or her father. The princess forgives him, suggesting they should discuss the future of the kingdom and their relationship together. The king is pleased to hear this. Osamu smiles, glad that everything worked out, but he feels a tinge of sadness as he once again failed to die. Later, we see Charlotte has become the Queen of Wrath. When soldiers report that monsters have appeared at the city's south gate, She orders the royal guard to exterminate them, expressing her reliance on each soldier to protect the kingdom. Meanwhile, outside the city, Tama and Annette are dragging Osamu in a coffin once more. They remark on Charlotte's bold decision to become queen and hope she will be all right. Osamu reassures them that Charlotte made this decision herself, so there is no need to worry. He then emerges from the coffin, declaring that while dying women are beautiful, there is also a certain charm to women who can stand on their own. Tama tells him to stop with his analogies and start walking, but he retreats back into the coffin. Eventually, the girls grow weary and decide to take a break for a bite to eat. Our lazy protagonist emerges from his coffin, eager for something to munch on, but they only have bread. Days, craving boiled tofu, expresses his dissatisfaction. Annette suggests they head to a nearby town to find some tofu. Although the group is just a few days away from reaching Tama's hometown, Annette wants to make a stop at a temple. Typically, an otherworlder arrives at one of the 4 temples in this world and heads directly to the Dark Lord's castle. However, Dazai's goal is not to defeat the Dark Lord. He just wants to find Sachin. This necessitates visiting all 4 temples to gather information on her whereabouts. Tama is shocked because this means they might have to travel all around the world if finding her proves difficult. Annette doesn't want Dazai to fight the Dark Lord because it's too dangerous, and Tama teases her again for being in love with him. Annette denies it, explaining that Dazai just gave her hope when she had given up on her job. Tama suggests that Sachin might be Day's soulmate, so Annette admits to traveling with him to find this out. Tama agrees to go with them until they reach her hometown, but Annette's half-hearted thank you makes Tama realize that Annette would rather be alone with Days. Annette quit her job, so Tama wonders if she will even be allowed into the temple. Annette isn't worried, though, because the head priestess of this next temple is a dear friend of hers. Moreover, Annette didn't leave her post without notice. She sent her letter of resignation using her familiar. This familiar makes its first appearance by snacking on Day's head. Annette scolds the little monster, but gets even more upset when she discovers it didn't deliver her letter of resignation. Days points out that the little beast is quite loyal for returning to its master, and he names it Mellows. Mellows seems to have taken a liking to him, but Days just wants to get more rest. Just then, Days must tell Mellows to quiet down as he begins to panic, and a terrifying dragon appears. Dragons are this world's most powerful monsters, and it terrifies the girls with a roar. Suddenly, a girl calls the dragon Ruka and commands it to stop. Annette and Tama are confused as the girl approaches the dragon and warn her to be careful. They are stunned when the girl speaks a different language to the dragon and tames it. The girl assumes that Annette and Tama's group has already suffered casualties because of the coffin and recommends they leave this incredibly dangerous area. Days emerges from his coffin, thinking it's time to eat, and the girls ask the stranger to forgive his rude behavior because he's an otherworlder. This infuriates the girl, and she vows to eliminate all otherworlders. She unleashes a power that terrifies the girls, and Annette has to block the attack with a barrier. Annette does her best to hold back the assault, but her shield eventually breaks. The group is badly injured, and the area is massively damaged. Annette concedes that the girls' magic is insanely powerful. The girls vow to protect Days at all costs, but the stranger brings them to their knees with her power. The symbol she bears terrifies Annette even more because it's the mark of the wrathful Dark Lord. Just then, the girls are shocked when Days stands up, having had enough of the dangerous behavior. He points out that the girls have nothing to do with this. Days reminds the girl that she's after otherworlders, and he is her only opponent. He tells her to do as she pleases, revealing that he's prepared for his life to end at any time. His friends beg him to stop, but it's too late as the stranger grants his wish and sends her arm right through his chest. The girls are terrified as Days collapses to the ground, and the stranger reveals her name is Waldelia. Annette and Tama faint, But Waldelia is shocked when Days reveals that he's still alive. He can tell that Waldelia has a lot of hatred inside her, and Days says he can relate, as he has lost his mind to intense hatred before as well. Waldelia is terrified to see him still alive as he approaches her, and Days comments on how sad her eyes look. He wants to know why, but Waldelia's terror causes her to flee with her dragon. She is still uneasy about what just happened and wonders who Days really is. A while later, we see that Mellows has brought the trio to the temple they were headed to. The priestess rushes to Annette, but Annette tells her that Days needs immediate medical attention. He's in really bad shape, so the priestess summons every priest to bring all the healing potions they have. A while later, we see that Days is fine, as he shops for some poison. The vendor explains that the poison is most effective when thrown at a monster, but he is shocked when Days just drinks it. Tama is furious because Days just made a miraculous recovery, but the priestesses are glad to see that he's doing well. The priestess named Nisha explains that she hasn't met anyone named Sachin, but she is more concerned about why Annette is traveling with an otherworlder. She's glad that Annette quit her job because she's too pure for it, but she's upset to see that she's traveling with an otherworlder. Nisha despises otherworlders because they use their divine gifts for selfish reasons. Just then, a strange rapping otherworlder named Kitaro appears, urging the girls to stop arguing and have some fun with him. They ignore him, but Kitaro demonstrates his overpowered skill of mass production, allowing him to create an unlimited amount of the world's currency. He offers to buy the girls whatever they want. Nisha swiftly gets rid of him, but he promises retribution. Nisha points out that all otherworlders are like Kitaro. Annette argues that Days is different, but Nisha can tell just by looking at him that he is just as destructive as the others. Annette continues to defend him, pointing out that he changed her entire life. At that moment, Days asks for money to buy some drugs. Annette casually hands it to him, still trying to convince Nisha that he isn't destructive at all. Nisha is then shocked to learn that Days doesn't have a gift. Despite this, Days still fought against the wrathful Dark Lord for his friends. Nisha is stunned to hear this because the wrath of the Dark Lord was actually destroyed by another otherworlder 7 days ago. Tama is equally shocked, and the two girls celebrate, believing that peace has finally come to their world. However, this makes them question who the girl with the dragon was. It's also strange that Days arrived 7 days ago, the same day that Annette's life changed completely. The biggest question remains: if this world no longer has a Dark Lord, why was Days brought here in the first place? Just then, the girls are startled as Days tears up a bunch of papers. Days dramatically explains that he was trying to write about the events that have happened since he arrived in this world. He was struggling to write, and now he is despairing over it. Annette eagerly waits to hear what he wrote about their first meeting, but her heart is shattered when Days reveals that he didn't write about her at all. Days isn't sure why, but his encounter with Waldelia gave him a surge of creativity, and he hopes that something else exciting will occur. Annette thinks he might find something if they explore the town, and recent events have made her want to buy Days some things anyway. In town, we see that Annette wants to buy Days some heavy-duty armor. There is no telling when they will be attacked again, and Annette never wants to see Days suffer ever again. Tama points out that Days looks like he's suffering right now, but Days actually kind of likes the oppressive feeling the armor gives him. The girls go to do more shopping, and Annette tells Days to stay put. Nisha finds him, and Days explains that he was just searching for new excitement. Nisha declares that Annette will be staying with her from now on because she has always been a pure girl and trusts people too easily. Nisha is sure that Annette will be unhappy traveling with him, so she begs Days to disband their party. Days just smirks, pointing out that it's up to Annette to decide what she wants to do. He declares that Nisha has no say in the matter and wonders why she thinks Annette will be unhappy. Nisha explains that it's because Days is an otherworlder, and she doesn't trust otherworlders. Just then, Nisha is stunned, and a crowd forms as a man arrives. This man is said to have been created by the heavens to stand above everyone in the world. He is an otherworlder, and his name is Lord Suzuki. Suzuki announces to everyone that the Dark Lord was defeated 7 days ago, and tells them to rejoice, as peace has come to their world. The crowd erupts with cheer, praising the otherworlders, but Suzuki reveals his real intentions. He points out that they risked their lives to bring peace, so it's only right that the otherworlders be allowed to rule the world. He declares that this time will be known as the Great Hero Age. Suzuki decides to be the ruler of this town, and his buddy Kotaro tells the townspeople to bow down to Suzuki. Kotaro then points to the girls and tells Suzuki that they were the ones who messed with him. Suzuki is furious, declaring that they committed acts of violence against an otherworlder. Annette tries to explain that he is mistaken, but Suzuki refuses to listen to someone who would harm a hero. Nearby, the town is on fire, and Days states that he finally feels like he can write his masterpiece. We then see that Suzuki used a skill to turn Annette into a pet. The transformation caused mutations in some parts of the elf's body, such as her eyes, which acquired darkened contours. Kotaro uses his rap to mock the fact that the purer a person is, the easier they fall under this spell, which was the case with the victim. Tama confronts the rapper, but Suzuki uses the same technique on the Catwoman, taming her just like her companion. With this, the human boasts about the power of this skill, claiming that no one can escape it. Emerging from the crowd, Asha steps forward to confront the transferee, stating that this was not how she taught Suzuki to use his gift. As she declares that the city of Vale will not bow to the whims of the human, all the inhabitants join the priestess's chorus and rise against the oppressor. Seeing this, Suzuki sends his wolves against the population, saying he will destroy everything to build another city in its place, since Vale does not want to surrender. Asha calls the human a bastard, and he sarcastically responds that he prefers to be called a hero, just as the elf did when they first met. To further provoke, he assures her that he will use Asha's church as his private castle. Shortly after, due to the wolves' power, which allows them to spit fireballs at the city's houses, Vale begins to burn. Even Tama attacks the residents, and one of the victims is Sensei, who is protected by his gigantic armor. After dozens of kicks and punches to the equipment, the girl manages to crack the steel until she destroys the armor. But the immense force she applied ends up throwing the armor's helmet at her head, knocking Tama out instantly. Thus, Sensei locks Tama in a barrel and leaves a warning that there is a violent cat inside. At that moment, he sees Asha being overwhelmed in battle. Enraged, the elf tells Sensei that this is how the transferees act in this world, using the gift they received for their selfish ends. Asha emphasizes that Suzuki was not like this when he arrived. On the contrary, he was a calm boy with a weak personality. As she starts this story, Sensei begins to write down what is said, as this type of character intrigues him. For this reason, the author asks which way the transferee went, and Asha says he headed toward the church, but reminds the writer that he does not have a gift for it. Therefore, he will have no chance against Suzuki. Regardless, all Sensei wants is to write his masterpiece, something he feels compelled to do. Not wanting to let the man go alone, Asha accompanies him. Upon reaching the church gate, Sensei is enchanted by the beauty and grandeur this place exudes. On the other hand, Asha cannot understand how this man can be so carefree, as the transferee possesses superhuman power, so it would be wise to have a plan before entering the church. That said, Sensei takes a vial of poison and drinks it all. Asha was thinking of silently approaching the back door, but the human had already opened the door by then. Inside, Sensei admits that he is interested in Suzuki's story and would love to write a novel based on what the transferee experienced. Faced with this statement, Suzuki becomes even more arrogant, having an author wanting to write about his heroic exploits in another world. However, Sensei notes that it is quite the opposite. The story is about a man who gains more power than he deserves and ends up falling into his own greed. Insulted, Suzuki promises not to let it go unpunished, so he orders his wolves to kill the intruders. Seeing that Sensei will not lift a finger to prevent his death, Usha steps forward and shoots rays of light to kill some wolves. But one of them grabs the cleric's magic staff with its teeth, taking her out of the fight. With this, Suzuki orders the other wolves to shoot flames at the rider, and this time Usha cannot do anything. However, when the fireballs approach, Sensei deflects them all using the helmet of the armor he wore, throwing the flames back at the attackers and causing a massive explosion. The helmet then reveals that it was actually Milo's deflecting the spells, as Annette had said that the armor was capable of deflecting first-level spells. After the flames dissipate, Kotaro begins to worry that these enemies are not as weak as they thought. But Suzuki reminds him that he still has a trump card, the giant wolf. Without delay, the transferee uses his number one pet to bite Sensei, which indeed happens. The bite draws blood from the man's shoulder until the poison spreads through the animal's body, killing it instantly. While Usha heals, the human Kotaro panics at what he witnessed, so he runs away. Usha demands the transferee surrender, but Suzuki is not done yet, as he saved his big trump card for the end. As soon as he orders Annette to leave to attack, the elf draws a dagger and charges at Usha, who never imagined this would happen one day. The priestess refuses to fight against her friend, so she intends to retreat, but Sensei has a better idea. While he takes the lead in the fight, he tells Usha that Annette is stronger than she thinks. Suzuki laughs at the rider's attitude, believing that his domestication skill cannot be cancelled, but Sensei is sure that the elf can still choose her own destiny, and it is not Suzuki who will dictate it. With her neck against Annette's blade, Sensei asserts that his companion is not a bird in a cage. As she hears these words, the elf holds the blade with her own hand, as if she is in an internal struggle between beheading the human or sparing him. Losing patience, Suzuki reinforces his commands with more mana, causing Annette intense physical pain. In her mind, she feels trapped like a bird in a cage until Sensei appears and encourages her to stab the dagger into her own leg. After doing so, she collapses and Sensei catches her. She returns to normal, much to Usha's relief. Sensei asks Usha to heal her friend, which she does while recalling Suzuki's earlier claim that Annette was stronger than she seemed. Suzuki drops his arrogant facade, revealing genuine fear as he watches his main skill being dismantled. Impulsively, he grabs the dagger and nearly takes his own life. However, Sensei stops him because he needs the dagger to finish his book. He questions Suzuki about his story, taking him back to his past on Earth, where he was a weak kid who couldn't stand up to bullying. Suffering daily verbal and physical abuse, Suzuki was treated like a pet by older kids, unable to defend himself. This experience explains his gift in Zauberberg, allowing him to control others. He considered ending his life, but lacked the courage. His life was dominated by cowardice and cruelty, feeling that no one could help him. Then, one day, he was hit by a truck and brought to Zauberberg. In this new world, he became a hero with the responsibility to save it from the Demon King of Wrath, using a powerful gift. Over time, he adapted and used his domestication ability to bring wild wolves to his side as companions. Despite this, he wasn't treated as a hero in Zauberberg either. The inhabitants were just as malicious, but now he had the power to react and wouldn't let this opportunity slip by. Suzuki doesn't believe he's done anything wrong because, in his mind, he will always be a nobody without determination. After hearing his story, Sensei concludes his novel based on Suzuki, a weak man who hoped to be a hero, but couldn't even become a villain due to his weakness. He titles the book Failure in Another World. Sensei thanks Suzuki for the content, but doesn't call it a masterpiece. He tears out a page, creating a magical circle that sends Suzuki back to Earth. Annette, shocked, checks Sensei's status and notices he now has the gift of writing. Usha believes this might be a special ability activated against other transfers, indicating Sensei was brought to Zauberberg to fight these supposed heroes. Frustrated, Sensei collapses, dejected at failing to write his definitive work. He wonders if he will ever find the inspiration he needs. Usha, watching the scene, wonders who he really is. Finally, Sensei asks what happened to Suzuki. In Vale City, the wolves that were once tamed by the transfers are now free. Tama, no longer Suzuki's pet, emerges from a barrel, confused by the chaos. Meanwhile, Usha gives Sensei a coffin with impeccable craftsmanship and golden details. She tells Annette that Sensei might play an important role in Zauberberg, and that his journey will be difficult and painful. Annette thinks Usha will prevent her from accompanying him, but Usha insists her friend stay by Sensei's side to protect him. Before Sensei leaves, Usha asks if Suzuki became like this because he gained more power than he deserved. Sensei isn't sure. Usha fears Suzuki will return to a miserable life on Earth, but Sensei believes it's up to Suzuki to decide if he will change. Back on Earth, Suzuki submits his resume at a local market to resume a normal life. The interviewer asks why he dropped out of school, triggering memories of Zauberberg. Seeing his anxiety, the interviewer gives him a chance, asking him to start his new job tomorrow. As he leaves the market, Suzuki feels the cold and extends his hands to appreciate the snowflakes melting on his skin. We then see, in Sontag, a northeastern region of Zauberberg, the renowned Weiss Cathedral hosted members of the Papal State, including Usher and Bishop Wolf, a clergyman bold enough to drink within the sanctuary. According to him, reality is for those who can't handle alcohol. He claimed the drink helped him endure the stinky dwarves he dealt with daily, unlike his colleague who worked with the demi in her jurisdiction. Suddenly, a servant of God with a strangely demonic appearance reminded Wolf that he shouldn't make such prejudiced comments in the Papal State. This goblin, the first non-elf appointed as a priest, had reached the rank of archbishop through exemplary work, which didn't necessarily please all church members. Feeling provoked, Wolf pointed his finger at his colleague's face and asked if the goblin wanted to switch jurisdictions with him, since he always got the hardest jobs. The colleague reminded him that the tasks clerics received depended on their behavior in the church, meaning Wolf should correct his habits instead of pointing fingers at others. During this exchange, Cardinal Miller asked everyone present to take a seat. With everyone at the table, he requested each member to report on their region, but first needed to address another matter. Interrupting the meeting, a clumsy cleric arrived at Weiss Cathedral via teleportation, stumbling and falling face first in front of her colleagues. As the others didn't recognize her, the cardinal introduced her as the new bishop of the Ersten Temple and took the opportunity to ask everyone to introduce themselves to the newcomer while giving their reports. First up was Annette's substitute in the Deanstark region, the Holy Land of Mountains and Flames. Her name was Aria, an inexperienced cleric who forgot to mention that Charlotte, the daughter of the King of Wrath, had inherited the throne, earning a scolding from the cardinal. After this blunder, the goblin finally introduced himself as Elton, Archbishop of the Verdun Temple in the Midwalk region, the Holy Land of Lakes and Water, where, according to him, peace reigned under his jurisdiction, a testament to the Pope's authority. He also warned Aria that it was strictly prohibited to be late, putting a look of panic on the young elf's face. Next, Wolf introduced himself as the cleric of the Dritten Temple located in the Samstag region, the Holy Land of Deserts and Earth. Although it was far from the other regions, they were managing well. The cardinal mentioned frequent conflicts among the dwarves, and Wolf highlighted that he was almost assaulted while trying to mediate a dispute. Lastly, Usher reported that she led the Zweiden Temple. A few days ago, in her jurisdiction of Donnerstag, the Holy Land of Forests, an otherworldly inhabitant went on a rampage and destroyed half of the city of Vale. Usher was mobilizing labor to repair the area. Coincidentally, Miller convened this meeting to discuss the transferred individuals, as the Demon King of Wrath was defeated by a group of these summoned humans. Consequently, the Pope decided to seal the magic circles that connected the otherworld to Zauberberg to stop the summoning of transferred individuals. With this news, Elton expressed joy at seeing his people free from the Demon King, while Wolf was glad to be rid of the humans. However, Miller announced that this story was far from over, as the 7 transferred individuals who defeated the Demon King of Wrath had taken the demon's lands for themselves. Recently, the Pope received a declaration from the 7 stating that they would use their power to transform Zauberberg into a utopia. This situation was a real blow to the Pope, who believed the transferred individuals were angels sent to save this world. These beings, once considered children by the papal authority, now saw him as prey. In other words, a war had been declared between the transferred individuals and the World Church of Helsahan, as these true fallen angels began to show their claws in various regions of the Free Kingdom. Likewise, Waldelia, the daughter of the Demon King of Wrath, could not be ignored for possibly harboring a burning desire for revenge. In light of these events, Miller announced that Zauberberg had entered a new era, and it was the Church's mission to overcome these obstacles and maintain peace. Arya questioned how they would be able to face such powerful beings, triggering Usher's memory of Sensei cutting through the sky with his pen power before a mighty transferred individual. She then declared that she met a transferred individual in Vale capable of returning others summoned to their world of origin through his gift. Upon hearing these words, the Pope himself agreed with Usher, as he also believed this angel could be Zauberberg's hope. As he approached and saw his subjects kneeling before His Holiness, he was moved. He asked Usher to tell more about this human. Meanwhile, on the other side of the trenches, a woman hummed a cheerful song that contrasted with the dark environment that once belonged to the most powerful demon. Nearby, a man wanted to know if the lady was thinking about her beloved again, but she ignored the question. As 2 glasses of wine were served at the table by the men, aware that his question wouldn't be answered, he informed her that their allies had departed for various lands, while the 2 of them stayed to observe what was in store for this world. In the meantime, what awaited the exhausted Annette and Tam was a well-deserved rest in the city they had just arrived at before hitting the road again toward Gruen. As soon as she celebrated sleeping in a warm bed, the cat received the news that she had leveled up to 17 from carrying the coffin so much, making her wonder if this was something to celebrate. Keeping an eye on the conversation, a kid pointed out the direction of the town's inn and offered any information that might help the travelers since they didn't know the area well. First, he told them about an organization called the Hero Introduction Service, also known as the Transferred Order Service, where people were assigned to accompany groups with little self-confidence and provide them with a safe and comfortable journey. By the way, it was the boy himself who created this service. Hearing this, Tama laughs, recalling her bad experiences with transferred people. The kid is offended, insisting the transferred are heroes sent to save this world. He offers to introduce them to a summoned hero for just 4 Zizenzens and Janikos. Tama is ready to refuse, but Annette hands the money to the boy. Tama reminds her that 4 Zizenzens doesn't grow on trees, but Annette thinks it's pocket change if it keeps Sensei safe. The boy, looking smug, asserts that a life has no price, and the dead man in the coffin would smile in heaven, knowing a hero was accompanying his friends. Suddenly, Sensei opens the coffin and apologizes for still being alive, almost giving the boy a heart attack. The boy yells that the corpse spoke. Sensei, offended, clarifies that he's not dead yet. Annette assures the boy that Sensei is a hero, though the kid doubts heroes look like zombified vampires. The boy grabs the 4 Zizenzens and runs off, introducing himself as Ner. Despite seeming like a scam, he promises to bring a real hero. Tama thinks it would be good to have this hero carry the coffin, but Annette insists on doing it herself. As night falls, the innkeeper, tired of them lingering, asks if they are staying the night. Annette says they are waiting for someone, but Sensei knows the boy won't return. According to the author, that rascal has the eyes of an adult. The rabbit girl deduces they are talking about Nur, the big myth, the most talkative and wretched kid in all of Zauberberg. Annette is furious at losing her money, while Sensei is curious about Nur's story. The rabbit girl explains that Nur, an orphan, deceives unsuspecting visitors for a living. Without an adult to guide him, he fools people indiscriminately. The innkeeper feels sorry for him, but acknowledges he is deceiving people. She argues that if heroes existed, Nur wouldn't be a street kid. The reflection in his blade shows only himself, his only company on a lonely journey. He survives by theft, and people sometimes steal from him. A regional bandit group exploits his fragility, counting the coins he gathered as a child thief. Nur nervously asks what they will do with him. One thug asks the same question, making Nur swallow dryly. Desperate, he bluffs that his transferred friends won't let it slide if he disappears. But the truth is they kidnapped him. The leader shows off a crossbow capable of piercing a dragon's armor and comments that Nur has been making money using their names. So he will have the honor of bragging in the afterlife about being killed by a hero. With the crossbow pointed at his head, Nur wonders if these are the heroes meant to save the world. Just before the fatal shot, Sensei arrives, pointing the crossbow at another thug's knee, causing him to scream. Another thug discovers Sensei is also from another world. Seeing Sensei's low life point and poison state, they dismiss him as a threat. The leader points the crossbow at Sensei, who begins to increase his HP monstrously. Sensei jokes about dying, asking the aggressor to shoot him in the heart. As the saying goes, the madman is only mad until he finds a madder one. The trio of goons runs away. Nur asks if Sensei is a hero, but Sensei doesn't see himself that way. He says adults are young people who have been betrayed, but Nur is still a child not ready to be an adult. Sensei leaves the dump, tying up Nur. Nur asks if that's it, and Sensei's silence implies it is. The next day, the group prepares to head to Gruan, with Sensei exhausted from chasing transferred ones all night. Annette, jealous, thinks Sensei was sweet-talking another lady, especially when he says it was a pleasant night. Suddenly, Nur, shameless, shows his face, assuring them he didn't lie. He promised to introduce them to a brave warrior, and this hero is standing right in front of them. As Sensei walked, his desire to end his life grew stronger, which scared Boyer, who tried to warn their companions about Sensei's state. Although they understood, they acted like nothing was wrong because they knew him well. Using Sensei's brave hero facade, Tama encouraged him to keep going until they arrived at her homeland, Grun. The cat girl, happy to be back, promised to lead everyone inside, but the local guards instead pointed their spears at them and threw them all in jail. Tama was separated from the others, and Nur thought it was because of something she had done, but Annette insisted that Tama was no thief. While Sensei used Milo's as a pillow, he asked the elf how people were executed in this world. The cleric refused to answer, knowing Sensei was fantasizing about Tama. Determined to escape, Nur quickly picked the lock, which prompted Annette to remark that it wasn't a skill a hero should have. Sensei put a hand on Nur's shoulder, and instead of praising him, questioned why he got involved in their situation. Unfortunately, the guards noticed the commotion, tied them up, and sent them to King Siberian. Minister Breard accused them of kidnapping the kingdom's princess, Matilda. Suddenly, Matilda entered the throne room and told her father that she wasn't kidnapped. She was just traveling to improve her skills and met these people along the way. She asked Annette if her story was true, and Annette, addressing Tama as Your Royal Highness, scared the cat girl. Tama, also known as Matilda, asked her father to release her friends, but the king refused unless his daughter promised to act more like royalty. Looking at her friends, Matilda agreed to her father's demands, effectively saying goodbye to her adventurous life. The prisoners were freed and went to an inn to eat. Nur devoured the food as if it were his last meal, while Sensei, having missed his chance at a dramatic death, took sedatives. Nair admitted he didn't know Tama was a noble, and Annette recalled being rude to her, which was why she feared the gallows. A waitress named Kajika, who used to serve Matilda, overheard their conversation and asked about the princess. Sensei, eager to learn more about Tama's past, asked Kajika to share her knowledge. Despite Annette's warnings about digging into a princess's past, Sensei insisted she was still just Tama to him. Meanwhile, Matilda watched from a window as a figure on a rooftop unleashed a power that destroyed the throne room. The king and guards rushed in to find a man named Kaibara, known as the fallen angel of gluttony, sitting on the throne. Kaibara announced his intention to consume the nation, and the soldiers prepared to fight. However, Kaibara used his cursed mouth to devour the guards, preferring the tender flesh of young demi-women. Outraged, King Siberian declared he would not let Kaibara leave alive. As a level 56 warrior with the divine beast's fist, Siberian fought Kaibara, using his thunder ability and wild cat palm technique. Kaibara, amused by the challenge, summoned his dark powers, but Siberian skillfully evaded the attacks and prepared to unleash his ultimate technique. As Tama appeared and called out to her father, Kaibara quickly realized he was facing a young demi, and the princess recognized the man from the rooftop. Tama stepped up to fight, but her father told her to stand back, saying she could not replace Leon. Kajika mentioned that Matilda had a twin brother named Leon, who was destined to inherit the throne. The people of Grun believed their civilization would thrive under the rule of the brave Leon and the kind Matilda. However, a storm struck 10 years ago, and while returning to the castle, Prince Leon and Queen Lapoma were killed in a landslide. After their deaths, the king became reclusive and depressed for a long time. Matilda saw her father suffering and didn't know what to do until she confided in her loyal maid Kajika, who decided to take Leon's place as the warrior heir her father always wanted. Unfortunately, this decision only brought conflict between father and daughter, and the consequences are still seen today. During the battle, Siberian claimed that Matilda's abilities were useless, enraging the young girl and causing her to attack recklessly. Without holding back, Kaibara launched his monstrous mouth at the girl, prompting Siberian to save his daughter at the cost of losing part of his arm to those sharp, interlocking teeth. Kaibara mocked the father's love for his daughter, lamenting that Siberian could no longer use his ultimate technique without the arm he just lost. The angel made sure to emphasize that he had just chewed the king's limb. Furious, Tama charged at Kaibara again, but Breard grabbed the princess before she could be killed and fled with her now unconscious. Coincidentally, upon reaching the middle of the city, the minister encountered the travelers who brought the heiress and warned them that a transferred one was attacking Grun. At that moment, an explosion occurred, alerting the entire population. When everyone looked at the scene, the dust settled, revealing King Siberian chained and kneeling before all. Kaibara introduced himself as the new king of this land and announced that he would not be an oppressive ruler, but he needed to fulfill his desire to consume the demi-flesh living here, focusing on the weak ones. A commoner threw a stone at the transferred one, who swallowed the demi without ceremony, causing panic among the population. Monsters prevented the inhabitants from fleeing, while Sensei wrote a story in his notebook. Soon he took Tama's hand and understood that she was the heroine of a tragedy. But the heroine he sought would never accept her tragedy meekly, so the princess needed to wake up and show the rest of her story. Unconscious, Matilda dreamed of advice she once received from Kajika, then woke up in this old friend's house and panicked to know what had happened when she fainted. Breard explained that the fallen angel took the capital and held her father hostage. She returned to her furious state, and this time prevented the minister from trying to control her. Annette mentioned the tragedy of the Claylan Pass, which took the lives of Tama's brother and mother. According to her, There isn't a citizen who hasn't shed a tear over this tragedy, proving that the people love the royalty of this nation. In other words, if they lose Matilda too, it will be even worse for them. Therefore, the cleric wanted Matilda to stay out of this. After all, Annette knew a secret along with Sensei to return the transferred ones to where they came from. Matilda understood the situation and let her friends go. Then, the group encountered two ogres guarding a passage further ahead. Sensei stepped forward and claimed to the monsters that he and his colleagues came to be eaten after being moved by the king's speech. Knowing the author's history, his friends worried that he was seriously ill, while the ogres, not expecting this, had no idea how to react. Thus, within some time, the trio was behind bars again, and Annette began to rant about having her freedom taken away. Sensei confessed that death was a good thing, but that this was not the moment for that. Then he took Nur's hat, where he found the clip that the boy must use once again to save the group. Meanwhile, Minister Beard arrived in Matilda's room to deliver soup to her, but the princess had escaped through the window. In the throne room, Kaibara reflected on which demi he wanted to devour next, with Siberian, in a state of absolute rage, beside him, chained and bloody. Soon, the ogres arrived to tell the story of the human who wanted to be eaten. But Tama interrupted with brute force, knocking down the monsters without mercy. Siberian regretted that his daughter made this decision, unlike the fallen angel of gluttony, who rejoiced to see his most desired dish before him once again. This brings an end to our episode.